Okay, Mr. Timothy, you'll have to unmute.
Hello,
How are you?
I'm fine, thanks. And you?
Good, good. Okay, just bear with me while I just see what's going on here. Okay, let's get started. Anyway, trust you well, man.
Yeah, hope you're
Good.
okay.
Where in Discovery are you?
Uh, then yeah, um, we're close to the wagon wheel. We're in the wagon wheel.
Close to the what? Sorry?
The wagon wheel, Honeyball,
Oh, down
like right
Honeyball
on.
side. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here opposite Florida Junction Spa.
Uh,
So I also, before we get started, um, I also run several other WhatsApp groups in the area, which will be beneficial to your parents. So I think you must ask your parents to make contact with me or WhatsApp so I can send and share the links for them. The first one is the Constantia Kloof and Surrounds group, which is almost 900 members strong. And the second one is the CK Active Crime Sharing group, where we specifically concentrate on active crime in the area as well as all suspicious activity. That's over nine. That's actually just on 950 members. So discovery is one of the areas that we do cover, and we need as many ears and eyes as possible. So please ask your parents to get hold of me as a matter of urgency, so I can get them up on the groups.
I will.
All right, now let's have a look. Jad has posted that. He's posted that. How old did you say you were again? Just remind me.
17, turn 18 in like a month.
Okay, now of course you need this for your scout badge, etc., etc.
Yeah.
I know you're going to have a couple of questions, but the very first thing that I would like to do is I'd like to, and I think you need to. By the way, are you recording the message? I mean the Zoom your side. I think record it so you can play it back. I'm sure you can also record locally. Okay, you turned your video off.
Hey, that was. Uh, not actually sure how to record.
You on the PC Zoom, eh?
No, I'm on my tablet.
On a what?
I'm on my tablet.
On your tablet. Have a look for more. It's normally under that side. So somewhere around your whiteboards, notes, more.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you're recording on. I wonder if it'll let you record to the tablet.
Uh,
All right. Well, I'll make it available and I'll send you a link to it at some stage, and you can always view it again. Now you've sent me this document of yours, disaster risk management, blah 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 blah. One, have you passed the first aid? That'll be something done your side. Who's doing your good knowledge of radio procedures? Does the scout group have somebody that normally does that?
So we have um so we've organized something for this Friday to do it, to get it signed off for me.
Okay, and who's going to be doing it? Do you know?
Yeah, it's one of the it's one of our scouters.
Okay, because one thing you probably don't know about me, and I haven't asked you yet how you managed to get hold of me. I'm actually the director of a emergency communications company called MCOM PDY Limited. I'm also a licensed radio amateur. And besides the voluntary structure, which we're going to discuss in a moment, we are involved in all of this. So let's move on then with the phonetic alphabet. I take it you've got a copy of the phonetic alphabet already, eh?
Yeah, that's all being done. It's literally just number 5.
Okay, so number 5. Now, when we get to number 5, one thing I do need to point out, this document, and I'm going to ask you to please bring it to the attention of your Scoutmaster. This document is so far outdated that there is no longer a civil defense organization in South Africa. Are you aware of it?
Yes. Kenneth, who's Troop Scouter for Discovery, when he was looking through, he also noticed it.
Okay, and do you know what it's been replaced with?
No.
Okay, so the Civil Defense Organization was actually originally instituted following the Second World War in South Africa, or during it, about the same time. And there was a legislative process, and it was called the Civil Defense Act, which was renamed post 1994 to the Civil Protection Act. Now, that act has also been repealed, and the Disaster Management Act has been implemented. So wherever there's a reference in here to to civil defense, that has to be replaced at some point with the Disaster Management Act as a whole, or disaster management. The other thing that I would like to bring to your attention with regards to disaster risk management, it is actually disaster risk reduction or disaster relief and management. So those are just a couple of things that one needs to bear in mind. So when we move on, you want to have a look at a current list of your local community disaster management or civil relief volunteer organizations. Have you currently got a list that you can give me that I can check with you?
There was a list on. Let me just find the document. I can't find the document, but another one was the MCSA Search and Rescue.
Okay, now are they a local organization or not?
They have like more people in like local areas that all around the country.
Yeah, but I think the question that I'm actually asking is in line with your actual 5A. Compile a current list of your local community. So, Will, who did you say? Which organization did you refer to?
The MCSA.
Okay, so the Mountain Club of South Africa.
Yeah.
Okay, are they local is the question.
No, but we can really find that many that are local.
Say again?
We couldn't find many when we looked online.
That's exactly where the problem lies. You see, the Mountain Club of South Africa, they will in actual fact start utilizing, and again, this is in line with the same question, a list of their respective functions. So the Mountain Club of South Africa will definitely get involved where there are mountains, like the Magaliesberg mountain range itself. There is a question as to whether they would actually get involved in the Little Falls, Constantia Kloof, Northcliffe Ridge, which could be considered local to your community. So Mountain Club of South Africa, you might have to put one side. A more appropriate organization, which you should look at and consider as being local because they operate locally in our area, would be a Search and Rescue ZA.
Okay.
Now I'm just trying to find you here. I lost you. There we go. So SARSA, they used to be ARU, or Off-Road Rescue Unit. You can Google them for a bit of additional information.
Oh, well,
Their contact details, I'm just having a look to see if I've got this here. I believe I have somewhere, which I can send to you, as long as my PC doesn't go into a flat spin and not give me the images, which is what it seems to be playing up at. Well, that's not happy. Just giving me a blank screen, believe it or not. Ah, there we go. So because we're going to put Mountain Club South Africa on one side of the fence, I'm sending you those contact details. And because of the fact that I have referred to SARSA, who would operate more locally than Mountain Club, even though Mountain Club may step in, SARSA would probably be the more appropriate organization to actually get involved. SARSA's website, I'm going to send to you as well. They do have a this is actually a very good page to keep in mind because the Gauteng number is there plus all the other regions. However, if you go down to the bottom, you will see that they've got an aircraft accident contact listing, which is the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center, or the ARCC. Which is also one of the local organizations you need to keep a record of.
Okay, I'll definitely will.
So I'm just trying to get this through to you bit by bit. Where did you go to again? There we go. So let me see what I've got for SARSA and for ARCC. Okay, so there's the ARCC as well.
Thank you.
We'll work through the list and see if I can get you as many. Okay, now let's get this one. All right, then disaster management which will be COJ or City of Johannesburg. Okay, Disaster Management Center. You can get on 011 3755911, which is the general COJ, City of Joburg, ambulance and fire and emergency. Then also you will need COJ ambulance, even though it's the same number, put it down separately. Ambulance and fire, 011 375 5911. Another a very important number when it comes to disaster management. There's actually two of them that you should have a record of. Which is SAP's flying squad. When in doubt, you can always just phone the 10111 number, but I'm sure you know this one already. And then for all emergencies from when calling from a cell phone, do you know what number that is?
It's 112.
Correct. Okay, there we go. Let me see what's going on here. Okay, so she's looking for a mechanic. Now, why did Leon van Zyl leave? Yeah, the people are strange. Sorry, we've got a we got a baboon down that side. Let me just see what is going on with this guy.
No problem.
All right, so let's have a look and go on and see what other organizations we might have in the area. Go back to you. Let's go back to your questions, which I've now lost. Okay, another one that have you got canine search and rescue?
No, I don't think we got that one.
All right, so let's see. I think her name is Karen, Canine Search and Rescue. All right, K9 Search and Rescue, Gauteng's number I'll give to you because they also operate here. There's that telephone number. Who've we got so far? Mountain Club, we're going to put on the sideline. We'll keep it on the list. SARSA, I've given you the a webpage to that. Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center, COJ Disaster Management, COJ Ambulance and Fire. Do you know why I've included ambulance and fire in this list, by the way?
Right.
Okay, you know that there's currently a building that collapsed in George yesterday, right?
No.
Okay,
No,
so the local fire department in a municipality has the legislative authority to run all search and rescue operations during times of a disaster. So we've had a 4-story building collapse in George, and of course now the George local municipality, or in our case, if it had occurred here, would have been City of Johannesburg. All of the local fire departments, or most of them, have in actual fact set up what's called USAR teams. And USAR teams are in actual fact urban search and rescue teams. So, of course, all of their guys will be rescue technicians. Another organization to continue to consider is Rescue SA. Rescue SA have a tendency to actually work more on an international basis, but they do undertake various bits of training and providing training to organizations and individuals in like manner. You know, if you take a look at SARSA, for example, you've got to be a member of SARSA in order to become rescue qualified, and that's approximately 18 months of training. So it's quite a lot of training that one goes through. Rescue SA will in actual fact provide specific courses, usually to people within the various search and rescue organizations, high angle rescue, rope work, etc., but rope work on a much higher level than I used to be a naval cadet 40 years ago. So they do rope work on a much higher level than what we would have done, you know, within the Scout Girl Guides naval cadet aspect. Now, unfortunately, Rescue SA's website, there it is, it's coming up. They have an emergency telephone number, so I'm going to do a screenshot for you of that one, and I'll send it to you so you can add it to the list. So they do advanced rescue training and disaster response as well. So let's have a look. Depending on how long it takes for the guys to get off the ground in George, Rescue SA might even deploy rescue technicians to go and help dig through the rubble and, you know, carry out the various functions that way. Okay, now I wonder who else can I give you as a possibility here? Well, this side of town, we actually, the National Sea Rescue Institute, NSRI, maybe you need to put them on the sideline as well. Because NSRI, you'll find them on major dams like the Vaal Dam and rivers. We don't actually have any major lakes. Yes, we got Florida Lake, but I don't think that they've got a base at Florida Lake. We've also got the Westdene Dam, which I don't think they have a base there either. I know that they do have a base out on the Vaal Triangle side. And I wonder now if I have got a full list of who they have. So give me a minute. And then, of course, NSRI will deal more specifically with the coastline of South Africa. And, of course, working in conjunction with the Department of Transport. They will also work with the Aeronautical Rescue Coordination Center, as well as the Maritime Rescue Center as well. Again, the Maritime Search and Rescue or Rescue Coordination Center might not apply to us up this side of town. I don't think it does, to be quite honest with you. So let's see, what do we get here now? Nothing. Make a note, the NSRI's emergency number is in actual fact 112 as well, eh?
Right.
But then just be sure to make a note that it might not have a base here. I'm busy double checking that now as we speak. Find a base finder, Vaal, Gauteng, there we go. Gauteng. All right, the Gauteng base is known as base number 27 or station 27. And by the looks of it, it is based on the East Rand, at the East Rand Speedboat Club. So whether that is now local, I don't know. You know, I mean, if you think about it, you've got a scouting group in Discovery, you've got Sandringham, and then Sandringham is probably going to see it as local, whereas Discovery probably wouldn't.
Right.
Okay, so what have I sent you? I sent you that, but I didn't send you this. NSRI. Okay, so they've got a base. East Rand Speedboat Club. And then, of course, that would have been for Gauteng. Then there's one in Denaysville. Again, you know, it's a bit far out. There's one at Hartbeespoort. And then there is another one at Emalaheni, Lenny. Where's that? No, that is Mpumalanga, so not local. So the next local one would be Denaysville in the Vaal Triangle. Okay.
Right.
Who else are we going to... Wilderness Search and Rescue is Cape Town, so don't worry about that one. Mountain Club we've covered. We've covered SARSA. We've covered K9 Search and Rescue. You saw Urban Search and Rescue, local fire departments, SAPS. Another, this says it's going to reboot in 10 minutes. If we time out, I'll just open it up again, join again. While it's opening, I'll get another cup of coffee. And then we can go on that side. Another important thing to remember with regards to SAPS, for example, SAPS does have a dive team, a proper search and rescue dive team. So their divers can get in the water and, you know, help and assist as well. Primary contact people, I think we've given you all of the telephone numbers so far. The contact details I've given you as well. Many of them don't have contact people, but just emergency contact telephone numbers. Base locations, I think I've covered that. For example, SARSA doesn't have a base here, but they operate throughout Gauteng. K9 Search and Rescue doesn't have a base here, but they also operate through Gauteng or throughout Gauteng. Then I think that might give you enough information at this stage, won't it? On 5A.
Yeah, that'll be plenty.
Okay, then, as far as disaster relief CERT is concerned, CERT stands for Community Emergency Response Teams. Our goal is to prepare volunteers to be able to assist in times of a disaster. So, for example, I see the question here, develop an understanding of what we do. Our sole and principal object is to, in actual fact, prepare volunteers to be able to assist, but only in times of a disaster. These other organizations that I've already raised with you, they will deal with incidents on a day-to-day basis. So your emergencies, one needs to understand the meaning of a disaster. Having a motor vehicle accident in a certain area is not a disaster. It may be disastrous to some, but it's not classified a disaster. The official definition of a disaster is where, one, the local municipality or local services are unable to cope with the amount of people that need assistance. And that then also includes the community, the local community. So wherever the local municipal services and local community are unable to cope, it would then be classified a disaster. At which point there are three different types of disaster volunteers that are defined in terms of the Disaster Management Act and in particular the volunteer regulations. And the first set of, or first category of volunteers is what's considered a unit of volunteers. That is where individuals in local communities can join the local disaster management structure and become members, direct members and volunteers of that particular structure. For example, you could join and register and sign up as a volunteer within the unit of volunteers of the city of Johannesburg. That's the first category. The second category is what's called general volunteers. Now, general volunteers are made up of volunteers outside of the unit of volunteers, or for those people that do not want to form part of the structured unit of volunteers. These could be business-based organizations, non-government organizations such as non-profit companies or non-profit organizations. These could be groups such as scout groups, for example. When we look at SASA, when we look at Canine Search and Rescue, when we look at Wilderness Search and Rescue or Mountain Club of South Africa, they all form part of the general category of volunteers, even though those organizations would work within the constraints and confines of the unit of volunteers. Then the third category of volunteers are the most dangerous types of volunteers one can come across. They are considered spontaneous volunteers. Why do I say they're the most dangerous? Because these are the members of the public that step forward to assist and have an intention to provide help or to provide assistance, yet they have got no formal or even informal training, and therefore do not know what they should not be doing, let alone what they should be doing. And as a result of that, when you get a spontaneous volunteer coming in to provide any kind of assistance, what in actual fact happens there is they come in and they do things that actually further endanger the victims of a disaster, but also the rescue personnel who are trained, and they place their lives in jeopardy. So disaster relief CERT is looking at bringing together general volunteers who would ordinarily have become spontaneous volunteers, but to in actual fact bring them into a semi-formal structure where we can provide some kind of training, especially in terms of what not to do, and introduce them to a command and a control system so that they know who it is that they would report to and how they would report and what they can do, what they can't do, in terms of the overall qualifications. So, for example, we get level 1 first aiders thinking that they can actually carry out a fair bit of work in times of a disaster. Yes, they can in actual fact assist, especially if it is, just looking at stopping the bleeding initially, or, like from the various other organizations such as Scouts, how to splint a fracture of the leg or even a fracture of the arm. That is all fair and well, but they cannot undertake greater capabilities and rescue, etc., etc. They could, in actual fact, think for themselves, well, I can help that person, and then step on a brick and or on a rock and actually fall through, the collapsed building and worst case scenario, kill themselves in the process. So our goal is therefore, firstly, to prepare volunteers, but also to create an awareness within local communities as to what it is that we in actual fact will do, and also to create an awareness amongst communities of the potential that disasters can happen and what kinds of disasters can actually transpire and take place and be carried out and affect communities, and to what extent, and also to ensure that through the recruiting of volunteers, we recruit across multiple levels of what we do. So I take it you know where our website is. Have you had a look at it by any chance?
Yeah.
So you've had a look at disasterreliefcert.org.za.
Yeah, I think that's where my mom looked.
Okay, so what you can then do, go back, I'll send you the link again. Everything that we actually are looking at doing is on the front page itself, but it's also under the About section. So you can draw a lot of information from there as well. I think the session is going to end in a minute and a half, or just over a minute. Let's kill this. I'll open it up again, and then if you've got any questions, I'll go ahead and answer them.
Okay.
All right, so I'll end it, and I will open it up again shortly.
Right.
Okay, there we go.
One of the other questions are on the badge requirements is what would I need to do to become a member?
All right, so it depends on which organization you're going to join, because of the fact that we've gone through various organizations. Just give me 1 sec. Jackie, I'm just on a Zoom meeting at the moment. I'll give you a call as soon as I'm done here. Okay, so depending on which one of the organizations you join, each one of them has a different sort of criteria that needs to be met. So, for example, if you were to join USAR, you'd have to, in actual fact, go and undertake various, and I think this is part of the question about the training. You would have to undergo firefighting training on various levels. You'd have to join the fire department. That would mean it'll become a full-time employment job, at which point it's going to take several years to work through the various structures to reach that goal or level of USAR. There are certain courses that you could also, do through universities, either on a diploma or on a degree level, and you would, in actual fact, then also be able to get involved in the higher structures. That being said, one thing that we mustn't lose sight of in terms of the overall disaster reduction aspect is our private ambulance services. I mentioned fire services earlier. And on that basis, you will find that emergency management services consists of fire and ambulance. However, now the way things are going in the country, we are seeing exponential growth of private fire services and private ambulance services. And each and every single one of them, in actual fact, does have an involvement in terms of disaster-related incidents. To join those organizations, you also would have to go and undertake various medical qualifications. The new legislation is actually putting everybody in a position whereby they need to go and do it's called the ECP, or emergency care practitioner, if I got the terminology right, which is a 4-year degree course at a university, which makes it a very lengthy process to actually get into these organizations. When you start looking at your voluntary organizations like the Mountain Club of South Africa, there you would have to join them. You'd have to become a member of the club in the area. So local area, as I say, Mountain Club, I don't know if Mountain Club SA has an actual base in the Magaliesburg or what their setup is. I've never looked into that. Canine Search and Rescue, I know they do a lot of operations out around the Hartbeespoort Brits area, so that might be considered as local. SASA, as I mentioned, you'd have to join SASA. And then when you join these organizations, they will require you undergo various training before you get to the qualified level. Then less intense organizations like Disaster Relief Cert. Well, Disaster Relief Cert is looking at various aspects, but not on that higher level, such as SASA and Canine. I've in conjunction with our other directors, we have in actual fact looked at bridging a gap between the local community and those higher levels of training and brought it down to what can you as a community member actually do. Some members would like to do first aid. Therefore, they'd have to go through first aid training at their own expense. Other members would like to do firefighting. So they might have to go and do basic firefighting courses, whatever the case might be, where they can become accountants, but, still get involved in fire. Then in addition to that, I mean, there are so many aspects when it comes to disaster relief overall and the disaster risk reduction. People can get involved in just doing communications. So how do you join? Well, you register, you get yourself on book, you indicate what it is you'd like to be involved in, and then you participate and get involved in whatever it is we're doing at any given time. We also look at providing training. We're in desperate need of finances ultimately to do the training. I'm trying not to put that sort of pressure and requirement on the registered volunteers. We're almost 100 volunteers registered at the moment. So we have been holding back on the training while we've been developing our various training courses. Then there's other areas like disaster area damage assessment that members of the community can get involved in. Logistical support is another one. So, for example, your dad's got a bakkie, or your dad's got a 3-ton truck, or he's got a trucking company or whatever, with big enclosed trucks that can transport goods backwards and forwards. Well, he can register as a volunteer, because in times of a disaster, people can make a plan, especially if there isn't anything else for them to do work-wise, or if they are affected by the disaster within the area and they've got a truck. Well, then maybe they can drive through to Pretoria and go and pick up 3,000 blankets and come back into Discovery. Like we had the roof come off of that block of flats down in Georgina side, just below you, a couple of weeks back. But also the rec center in Discovery lost its roof. Now, I mean, in cases like that, somebody with a truck can go through to Pretoria and pick up a donation of 3,000 blankets and bring it through. And the people that are now, in a block of flats with no roof, at least they got extra blankets, whatever the case might be. Animal rescue is another aspect. You always find that during disasters, Animals are running loose. They need to be gathered and collected. They're going to get hungry. They're going to become dangerous to rescuers. And then, of course, they also die as a result of this, very much like people. We need people that will be able to set up temporary morgues or to recover the bodies of those that have lost their lives, including animals. And then on the other hand, there's things like evacuation shelters. So to give you an example as a scout, this is an excellent idea for the scouting movement as to how you actually get involved. Well, let's say, for example, we have a disaster in the western side of Johannesburg, and we need to open up emergency shelters. Maybe it was a tornado that came through, took out parts of Florida, and now we got like 3,000 or 4,000 people that are homeless or don't have a roof over their head, or their entire infrastructure has been ripped up. What are we going to do with them? Well, we need to move them into school halls. Where? Discovery, Constantia Kloof. We can take them down into Maritzburg. Now we got school halls that are going to open up. We're going to have churches halls that are going to open up. What do we need to do in those buildings at the time of opening up an emergency shelter? We need to know who they are, what their name is, what their address is. So even scouts could, in actual fact, be assisting. And I would recommend any scout over the age of 16 maybe working with their parents who are registered volunteers as well, with disaster relief cert. They could be sitting there at a table, writing down a name, writing down an address, gathering that information, recording it on a PC if we do have electricity at those facilities. Otherwise, it must be paper-based. Then also, again, the younger generation can also assist in helping the younger generation who are now affected by this disaster, and take care of them within the shelter. Maybe, get together and find some activities, play board games with them, while the parents are, in actual fact, maybe assisting with preparing food, distributing food. So there's a lot of things that anybody over the age of 16 can be involved in. And I think what I've just done is I've covered the general aspects on your professional level of search and rescue and disaster management services overall that you would have to join. However, as a general volunteer, you can get involved on the lower level, but still vitally important, which takes the pressure off of the municipalities and provides the assistance that the municipalities need. Because at some point, we still need to look at family tracing or restoring a family links and repatriation. And what that means is we need to know who is where, who is missing from where, who is with us that they don't know where they come from. So there's a whole lot of other aspects there that community members can register with no qualifications, but can still get involved. So, for example, during a disaster, suddenly at the Discovery Recall, we've got a lot of people coming in with children saying, we found this child walking the streets on their own. We don't know who the parents are. Okay, fine. Now we've got other volunteers that can actually take a photograph of the child, record it, and then, through other shelters, we're going to get people that are going to come and say, well, my son is missing. Okay, well, what does your son look like? And here's a description. We can have volunteers that are going from that shelter through to other shelters and going and having a look in the shelter. Hey, hang on a second. You match the description. What's your mother's name? Bang, we've got a match. We can get a family member together again. Of course, that will have to be done under strict conditions, ensuring that children are reunited with their relevant parents, and vice versa. And of course, we'd also have to, work alongside SAPS on this, and FPS, the Family Protective Services, i.e. the social workers, to ensure that that matching is done appropriately. So to register, it's quite simple. You go to the website and you register. Over the age of 16, everybody is welcome. We will find something for you to do And of course, there's a whole lot of on the registration process. What are you prepared to get involved in? And then at least we from the executive management and the director and board side know who is prepared to do what. Hopefully that one answers that question.
Yeah. And that seems that's all the questions that are on the badge.
Okay, I see one of the things here is discuss any similarities between Scouts SA training and the organization's training. I think I've covered that, but let's just look at it in a more specific manner. In terms of the Scouts training, of course, the training is based at the Scouts members' age limit. Okay, so it's in accordance with what they would be able to carry out at the level of their actual age. So a 13-year-old wouldn't be expected to set up a two-man stretcher and carry an average size adult male. You might have to look at your training in that aspect of having 6 or 8 people that would carry that homemade stretcher in order to bring a person to a triage center following post-disaster. Whereas 2 18-year-olds might be able to, manage that type of thing. Me personally, I wouldn't recommend a two-man carry of any homemade stretcher because sometimes they do break. Look, even the professional. I used to work for the Vries Ambulance, okay, as well as the South African Red Cross, and I have transported thousands of patients over the 20-odd years of voluntary work. And even with the professional Furno stretchers, I've dropped a couple of patients accidentally, and I know what it's like. So, homemade stretcher versus professional stretcher, and you drop it, well, your patient is not going to be happy and you might break his arm. So all of these are risks, but we have to take them. So similar training between Scouts and the various organizations, it is very similar. The Scout movement itself, to be quite honest with you, a Scout member who has undertaken a particular level of first aid training, whether that training is based on Scout standards or in terms of CETA and SACWA standards, i.e. level 1, 2, or 3 in the first aid realm, which is now considered on the level 3 advanced first aid. I would say that you've got a pretty good understanding, a reasonable understanding, I think would be more appropriate, of what you can't do or what you shouldn't do. You always need to know, don't do more than what you've been trained to do. So in this aspect, your similar training does provide you some insight into what not to do. However, in times of a disaster, even with a professional, a private ambulance service, by saying, look, guys, I've done whatever training it is on the Scout level. If you need help, I'm here. They might turn around and say, well, come hold the drip. And you become a drip stand. That's perfect. At least you will know then that you are serving a valid purpose. If, for example, they arrive on scene and you have managed to stop the bleeding and you tell them this is what they've done, even though they might rip your bandages off and go and redo it in a different manner, that's fine. The fact of the matter is that you have done something within the scope of your training. So I think that covers that one as well.
That's where at Discovery we've been very lucky because our group scout is David Stanton. He owns a hospital and he used to do a lot of emergencies, speed ambulance. And then we also used to have Martin Buerta, who again, you're trained top level first aiders in South Africa. And then one of our scouters now, he's also he's been on the first aid ambulances, and he had like the first aid teaching license.
All right, now that's good. I mean, at least that way, it does give your group in itself. What do you call Scout troops? What? I don't know. but you understand where I'm going. At least that level of background. For example, on my side, I was trained by the International Committee of the Red Cross in disaster relief assistance and management back in the 1980s. So that's where my speciality lay on that side. However, I also was a registered SA Red Cross first aid instructor. I used to train up to gold medal. I used to assist with primary emergency care, and I used to assist with emergency medical assistant 1, EMA level 1, which I was qualified at as well. In addition to, through the primary emergency care, we were also responsible and trained to carry out and undertake vehicle rescues and that type of thing. And that is why it is important that each and every organization does have qualified people. And my recommendation to you guys, as scouts, for example, would definitely be to ensure that if you've got an interest or a passion in this, pursue it, even if it is on a voluntary basis. Don't let it just sit there and do nothing. Go ahead, get involved, get registered. Look, in our case, you might register, for example, with Disaster Relief Cert and never be used. The thing is that through our general discussions that we have on the WhatsApp groups and whatever, being a national organization, we might put something together on WhatsApp, or there are various other discussions, for example, that I've already carried out in the last 6 months, which will give insight and benefit, but you might never be used because we don't have a disaster. Whereas if we were, our volunteers that build up in KZN and the Western Cape and the Cape coastline as a whole, they might be more involved, especially, following like the Knysna fires, and then the various flooding that takes place in KZN in particular. So on that aspect, we might be less busy this side and not be involved in anything. But the point of the matter is that you are available. That if something does happen, you can, in actual fact, get involved. So any scout over the age of 16 can get involved in various organizations. Some of them will have an 18-year age limit. Others might have adults only over the age of 21. In our case, we're looking at community level, and a 16-year-old working with their parents most definitely is a requirement, because of the fact that they are working with the parent and they do it as a family unit, and they're not doing it in their own individual capacity. However, an 18-year-old is no longer considered a minor, and therefore they can take the decision for themselves and get involved at their own risk. But still, as an 18-year-old, I'd still recommend that it is done in conjunction with the parent's supervision, because some of the work could be dangerous. So one needs to balance that out. Hope that helps you, man.
Yeah, it definitely does.
So what I will do is I will render these 2 videos, and I'll group them together and I'll pop them up on my local server, and then I'll give you a link that you can go and have a look at it, or I might pop it up on I think I'll actually put it up on the YouTube channel, because then you guys can feel free to share it with other people as well, other scouts, whatever.
Yeah.
How's that sound?
Thank you. Sounds fine.
Okay. I'm going to wish you all the best, and please don't forget to ask your parents to make contact with me so that I can get them up on the groups, and we can move it forward from there.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thanks for making contact with me there, Timothy, and I really hope that this has helped you.
It has.
Cool, fantastic. Have a good one.
You too.
Okay then. Sorry, I'm not squint. I got a screen, I got the teleprompter, and I got another screen. So I'm watching you here, but the camera is in front of me.
I realize.
Have a good one.
Cheers.
Thanks a lot.